music button. We just need you.
Ba, 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 ba. It's like some kid
Ba-da-beep-bop.
show. What is it? No, my
Is
kids
that
are
what
watching.
Logan was watching?
Yeah.
Fairs?
Yeah, what is it? Some storks. Storks and babies.
Is it Storks?
Yeah.
That's the name of the movie.
No, well, there is a movie called Storks, which is
Storks.
good, but
It's
they're
really
just
good.
watching some like
Wolfpack, form wolf boat.
I don't even know they could do that.
That's the best. That's amazing.
That is pretty funny.
Hey, okay, Hunter's going live.
Oh, you
with
got a
Cliff
notie.
Gray. Oh,
Wow, how'd you do that? Let's do it on Instagram. Get her rolling.
This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks. That's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag. You hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
I think we just finished a bottle. We should have like a bell in here.
cashed. Bing, 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 bing. There's your bell.
There's our bell. The bottle is the bell.
The dinner bell.
Finger licking good.
We're going for a liquid lunch today, boys.
Good times. So welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast. We're coming at you from the Okayest Hunter podcast studio. It's my radio voice.
It just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
That's yummy stuff. It's pretty good. We're brought to you by Nosler. And I'm really excited about our Oregon film that's about to, I don't want to say about to drop because I have to review it, make sure we get edits, but we're at the finish line.
We're
and
closer than we've ever been.
Once we're at the finish line, we'll be able to announce the release date. And I got to work with Nosler and Raiton and Kafaru to just make sure everyone's all on the same page. But big shout out to those three companies for jumping on board on the film and helping support that whole thing.
Heck yeah, it was amazing. Touring Nosler and
that's the
meeting
big
all
thing
those guys were awesome.
Yeah. Seeing that, I did scrub to that part real quick.
Oh yeah, I didn't get to see that part yet.
Really cool. And what the other thing I have to make sure is like there's nothing proprietary being shown or that like we are showing something maybe we shouldn't. So I gotta make sure and get it clear.
I think we'll be okay on that, but definitely check with them first. But they kind of let us know what was off limits and
okay. So hopefully, yeah, I think we got a good idea there then. But I mean, it looks beautiful. I'm really even more jealous than just hearing about it. So I'm excited to see it all come together. But yeah, Nosler, great partner of ours, high quality ammunition. If you're in their affiliate program, for anyone that might be in that, we were just talking about last week, their Varmageddon rounds that they're just kind of like pumping out right now. And
pretty big.
Their trophy grade Nosler ammunition. They have the whitetail country. So like they got you covered. If you're going to try to go kill a varmint or some wild game, like you should be good to go, short of anything birdshot. I think Nosler's.
I'll be ordering some of these very soon because I just got the order form today for 350 Legend. I'm going to get a Savage 350 Legend, and that'll be...
What caliber is that?
This is 350 Legend right here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's a straight wall cartridge, which allows you to hunt with it in some states that allow like shotgun hunting or muzzleloader hunting.
Okay.
And it's a smaller caliber. It's not rifled down as much, neck down as much as
the
old Tubbs man would say, which it doesn't have nearly the punch. So it's low recoil, good for smaller people or kids. So I see they make a compact size. They have like full size stocks.
Okay.
Then they have compacts for like youth or smaller people. So I'm ordering one of those and then we'll get some sweet Nosler to shove down that baby.
Dude, fantastic. That's really exciting.
Then the kids will have a good youth gun. And if I ever go down to Illinois or Iowa for a shotgun hunt, I can take that with me.
Fantastic. Well, and by the way, like use code OHP, which stands for Okayest Hunter Podcast. For Nosler, it's 20% off. One of our other partners, we just got these Stakeout Spark multi-tools in. And Derek and I are over here putzing around and
we almost started a little campfire in here.
Well, yeah. So what you do is you take out the saw blade on this thing, which I'll do here real quick. And when you do that, inside of here, you can pop out this little striking stick, and you just simply take that against the saw blade. And if anybody's watching live right now, just you can see I was actually throwing some pretty good sparks on the first go of it.
Ooh, that's a good one.
There's go.
Hey, careful, or MacBook's gonna go up in flames.
So, I mean. Shit. Okay, that's pretty cool. So anyway, check these things out. I mean, they have a stake, like a 10 stake puller on here. It looks like a little hook. It's got a carabiner to clip on your pocket. They snap back into place really nice. And they got a saw blade, a blade. They got the fire starter, ruler. So this is really designed for like campsite. So elk camp, deer camp, camp. if this thing can't do it, like you probably don't need to do it or get it done. Is that how you said it before?
I think so.
Something like that. It was good. And it's got a pocket clip too, in addition to the carabiner.
Yeah, the multi-tool is a great thing. And just like have in your pocket when you go fishing with the kids too, because you know you're gonna have to like straighten some hooks and cut line off of the the bobber that's hanging from the tree. So like having the multi-tool with when I take the kids fishing is always hugely valuable.
Did you say you're hungry? I just used this to open up some venison. So
Oh yeah. Well, now you open venison, I'm hungry.
here we go. We do. So
Just-
yeah, you guys saw there too.
This thing looks. I didn't even take this out, but
It's wild. I got to check the dates on the Quick Trip stuff. I think we're on a new campaign and I didn't have time to read the campaign. I'll check into that later. You probably see some social content come from us, but if you're not thinking about Quick Trip when you're driving, you probably just haven't driven long enough yet because you have a Carrabba Quick Trip
10
in your hand.
10 minutes ago, I was there.
Latitude Outdoors, more products coming from them. They are doing a lot of trade shows. So as are we. Well, not a lot. We're doing one, but make sure if you're at a trade show, stop by, say hi to Latitude, tell them, okay, it's Hunter sent you, and see if you can activate that discount code OHP while you're at the trade show. And if I get yelled at for it, then that means it worked. We'll see what happened there. And I think that's covers the bases there. So we're good. We'll move on. Hopefully you guys don't mind us talking about that stuff. But Cliff, you're live on the show, man. Thanks for, dealing with me on the wrong clock and stuff. Appreciate you.
No, that's all good, man. I like your guys' intro and your setup and the whole deal.
It's chill. It's chill. We don't.
We've been doing a lot more talk about the sponsors in the beginning in the last couple months.
It happens naturally sometimes, and obviously our partners have like dedicated shows throughout the year too. But I don't know. I try to make it like
it's a little
organic.
more challenging to get them to come in organically outside of hunting season.
Yeah.
Like now, like camping stuff will work, but like it's hard to talk about hunting products when you're not hunting all the time.
It's true.
So,
Like who's trying to get in a saddle right now? Anybody? No.
trying to think of
Probably
how you
not.
would make that work for ice fishing. I'm sure you would try.
I mean, you could buy some line and hang yourself because it's not hunting season. That's maybe a little dramatic.
Oh wow, yeah, that's dark. I like it.
Don't do that. I'm sorry if I offend anybody there. It's a pretty poor topic to pick. We're gonna get fired now.
You're the boss.
Yeah, leave it to me to fuck it up. Anyway, Cliff, how are you today, man?
Good, man. It's all good, dude. Life's good. I feel like I'm on like I transition every year and I'm about like a month out of heading back up to the States and getting into guiding mode. So it's all good. Just that time of year,
Let's talk about that because you live I think you're living the dream of a lot of people and you're in it. So like the dream is a little bit maybe different for you, but where are you now? Where are you when you're stateside? And like, why are you traveling? What is the life of Cliff Gray? A day in the life.
Yeah.
Seasons.
Yeah. So it's funny. I think it's funny, man, when people say it's unique or however you want to describe it, living the dream, because when I'm here, so I live half the year in Puerto Rico, but I'm surrounded by people that I guess kind of live the same existence. So it kind of, you don't realize it's abnormal. You know what I mean? But I spend about half my year down here, 6-7 months. And then I usually go back up sometime like mid-April, depending on when I start guiding spring bear hunts. And then I'll be up there in the States till usually like mid-November after I'm done guiding elk hunts. And I let's see here. Historically, most of the time I would go back to Colorado, but nowadays I've been living in Oregon. So got to go all the way across the states.
Wow. That's
Dang.
what part of Oregon?
Near Hood River.
Okay. Is that where you guys were?
I don't think it was the Hood River. No.
Yeah.
Is
So,
that
yeah. So
northern?
I'm about a hour east of Portland.
Okay. So, yeah. So we flew into Portland, but then we had to drive like 5 hours south. We were in like the southeast coast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were pretty far down. I mean, we weren't far from California.
It looked really
Yeah.
pretty.
What town were you by, man?
Oh gosh, what the heck was the name of it? We didn't stay in town. We stayed at Lyndon's mother. It's got a house right on the river where the salmon run up. It's awesome. But gosh, I cannot think of the name of the town right now. It's a little port town. Crystal Falls.
Yeah.
believe-
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
You're probably not too far from like Gold Beach or something like that.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar. I believe it was Crystal Falls. It could be wrong. That was the closest like town.
Sure.
But we were out in the boonies a little ways.
Sure.
Mom's place is gorgeous. She was showing us pictures when the salmon run up. Like that whole river in her backyard is so pristine. You couldn't even see an ounce of water that didn't have a fish in it. It
Wow.
was just freaking cool. Keegan was flying his drone around through the trees up there. It was just beautiful.
That sounds cool, man.
Yeah, Oregon's an awesome
I
state.
can't wait to see it. It's going to be happening soon. We're all going to be able to watch this film. Hopefully, you guys were on your A game. Your
Judging by
best-
the
on your best
intro of
behavior.
me just farting, I don't know if that's the
Oh, that's great. Well, so you're spending your time in Puerto Rico. I as far as I know, you're spearfishing by and large. What else are you doing in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm an obsessive spear fisherman and have been for like kind of off and on for a big chunk of my life.
What's
So that's
less
part.
than obsessive in spearfishing, by the way? Is there
What's that?
what's less obsessive than spearfishing? Like, if there's someone that's spearfishing, are they like, I'm kind of casual? I feel like you'd have to be pretty into it no matter what, right? Or no? Maybe I'm just
Yeah,
wrong.
no, that's an interesting conversation, man, because a lot of people associate with like a pretty steep learning curve or hard access or whatever. But man, there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity just depending on if you're willing to think out of the box. You know, I know a lot of guys that freshwater spearfish in the States. So it's all like a spectrum. I mean, if you're I mean, if you frame the fact that I've kind of structured part of my life around it, then yeah, it's pretty. I would say it's pretty obsessive.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So okay, I interrupted. I have to work on that. So I'll let you continue on.
Is that why Puerto Rico, or is there some other?
There's bunch of different reasons. I have some family that's lived here
Okay.
for a while. I've got a brother that lives down here, and he's lived here for much longer than I did. So what happened was when I sold my business in Colorado, I had an outfitting business there. When I sold it, and I kind of sold it, I would describe it as unexpected. I mean, I had it for sale, but it was such a complicated business and some kind of like, you know, idiosyncratic ways in terms of the fact that it had a lot of horses and mules and that sort of thing. I kind of figured it would take me a long time to sell it, or I'd have to like finance it to my crew. And I had a pretty good crew at the time. So I was thinking it was going to take me like 4 or 5 years to sell it. And I sold it in like a couple weeks.
Oh my god.
And so it kind of, you know, you think you have a little runway to, you know, pivot in life or whatever. And it happened pretty quick for me. So at that time, I knew, me and my wife knew we wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit. And I had family down here, so I figured why not start splitting up time and enjoying some nice weather and getting some ocean time and all that sort of thing. So there was some logic around it. I mean, like having said that, and this is how most people end up, I found, in the Caribbean. Like, I mean, if you ever listen to like Jimmy Buffett songs or anything like that about the Caribbean, there's some truth to like how erratic people end up down here, you know, or impulsive, I would say what it is. So like most people come down here on vacation and then they like buy a house in a weekend or whatever, because they just, you know,
They're so romantically charged by the
yeah. So I had some logic in mind because I had my brother here and that sort of thing. He's got kids the same age as my kids, so the cousins could have their thing. But there's an element of impulsiveness about it also, you know.
I like that. I mean, when I went to Nicaragua, it was similar. I was like, we should just stay for like a month. I almost quit my job.
You loved it?
Yeah, and it was so affordable. I was like, I could just side gig out here and I could have a paycheck. My money went so far in that country. It was crazy.
It's
and
funny.
I just wanted to keep staying. It was just like so awesome.
How old were you?
Mid 20, like 20, 28, 29, somewhere in there. I mean, end of my 20s, I guess. I decided to go on an adventure. It was 10
That's
years
cool.
ago. Yeah.
That's funny that Cliff mentions that it's like an impulsive thing, because my dad worked with this guy at a paper mill for like 25 years. And the guy just was like, I'm quitting and I'm moving to Puerto Rico. And we're like, really, Dave? Like, you're
Really,
what are you gonna do? He goes, I'm going to sell ice cream and I'm going to live in Puerto Rico. And he
Cliff's like, I
freaking
know
did
that
it.
guy. Cliff's like,
He did
that's,
it.
oh yeah, that's
Quit his job, moved to Puerto Rico, and it's like selling. I don't know if he got like an ice cream truck or what, but it was like he was like, "Oh, it's the best."
Well, we met a guy down in Nicaragua when we were on Ometepe Island. We were gonna climb the volcano, and this dude showed up to the hostel we were staying at because they had a like a little breakfast nook attached to it. So we're eating breakfast, and this guy strolls in his flip flops and like beat up t-shirt, and he's like, "Oh, where are you guys from?" We're like, "Oh, we're from Wisconsin." He's like, "No way, I'm from Michigan." And like, oh, like, what are you doing here? He's like, "Oh, I live here. I bought a house down here, and I did my retirement here because my money went so much further, and it's just why would I want to not? Why would I not want to do this every day?" I was like, "What? So you just this is your life?"
That just opened the door. in
Just
your
walk
brain.
down here in the morning, get breakfast, and then I go back and just hang out by the beach. I was like, all right, that sounds amazing. So yeah, Cliff, you're right on. Puerto Rico is probably maybe a little bit easier because it's not it's a U.S. Territory, right? You don't have to have your passport and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's some elements that make it easier, for sure. And then, and the other thing is, admittedly, Puerto Rico has, I mean, not technically an expat community because it is the U.S., but it has what Puerto Ricans call is like a pretty large gringo community because of like the tax incentives and like, I mean, we could have a whole podcast on all of that stuff. So there's like the business component of it that draws a lot of people here. And I mean, there's 30 miles of me, there's probably 50 different YouTubers with like giant audiences and that sort of thing. So it's not like you're out on a deserted island. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's that element of it. And I think that's like one of the challenges, man, is like the story you just told about people moving to the Caribbean or, Hawaii or Central America or whatever. Is what happens is a lot of Americans get bored. Like it seems awesome, and then they move, and it's awesome for like a year and a half, and then they get bored, and they want to start doing something business wise or whatever, and then they end up moving back because there's no like outlet for that. And Puerto Rico is pretty good on that front. Like if you want like a network of of people and even if you wanted to start something new, there's a lot of possibilities for that down here just because of the network of people. But then you got the other side of things too. It is an island. So there's some nice things. There's some nice things about that.
Yeah, for sure. So then the other half-ish, you said Spring Bear, which is probably approaching, and then elk. And so you're in Oregon, and then you mentioned Colorado. We've heard Oregon might be a bit of a sleeper state for bear. Is that like, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, but like, is that a thing?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's a good state for bears. The only thing is, and I mean, you have to kind of follow along, and depends on where you want to hunt and all of that. But in the springtime, a lot of it's draw, so it's just more of like a tag availability thing. That can hinder some of that. But there's some phenomenal play. I mean, in terms of like some quintessential spring bear hunts. I mean, if you look at like the Hells Canyon stuff and stuff like that, I mean, it's incredible places like, in Eastern Oregon to hunt them. And then of course on the West Coast too, and that's more, I would describe that as more like a logging infrastructure type of hunt. It's going to be like similar to Southern BC or something like that. It's a great state for it. It's just a tag availability thing. Most of the spring bear stuff that I do, I actually go over and I guide them in Idaho and then Montana. And then last year I took a bunch of guys up to Alaska. I'm not going to do Alaska this year just because my schedule is so ridiculous. But no, Oregon's good. I mean, there's a lot of good places for spring bear. Unfortunately, some of the Western states don't have a season. Colorado doesn't have a season, but there's lots of good spots.
Actually, I didn't realize they didn't have a season. We have one here in Wisconsin, but like it takes forever to
We
get.
don't have a spring season.
Not
We've only
spring
got a
season.
fall-
Okay, good point.
A fall bear season. But I know Lyndon, the guy that we were with, obviously in Oregon, he's done a couple of trips into Idaho, doing some like real rough terrain stuff, Snake
Sure.
River and going in and spring bear. And I think the last area they went to, I think Lyndon picked just like the hardest area to get in because that's just him. And I think he said they hunted for like 9 days. And I don't know that he saw a bear, but he's like, it was awesome, just like hiking and like almost dying all the time. But I don't know if he saw a bear. I think his brother did, but they didn't get to a ton of bears the last season in Idaho. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, Eastern Oregon and Idaho it is pretty rough country, man. Like, and then you get to like the river system, like the salmon, the Selway, all that stuff. It's pretty rugged, but it's like any hunting, it to some extent is condition based. And spring is weird because it kind of depends on if you just hit it right. And the thing about it is all about it's not like the way I describe it to hunters, like a lot of hunters, they base their hunts on like biological things that are photo period based, right? Like length of day. Like you guys, I'm not a whitetail guy, but you guys know when the whitetail rut is. And it's probably, I mean, depending on the state and the latitude, I bet it's pretty darn consistent like every year. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, first 2 weeks
Yep.
of November, like clockwork.
Yep.
I don't care. What
Yeah.
anyone says. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the elk rut and stuff, same deal. Cause it's all photo period based. It's just length of day, right? Triggers that stuff.
What is that? Can you define photo period? I just want to make sure our listeners know what that means.
Yeah, and
Oh,
hopefully I'm not defining it wrong, but photo period is like the length of how many hours of daylight are in a day, and that triggers a lot of I just looked it up, man. The period of daily illumination received by an organism. When you ask me, I'm like, dude, I hope I'm not using that wrong.
I
That
don't
term
care.
wrong.
Like your definition's fine. I don't need but yeah, I was like, I was thinking like in terms of trail cam, like Derek's trying to get pictures of bucks in daylight photo. I was like, I think you mean something quite different. I just wanted to take a second to think about that.
Well, yeah, and photo refers to light. Like photography is writing with light.
As coming from the
Graphene.
photography art
Yeah,
teacher.
yeah.
Thank you. This is
And
really
the photo period that Cliff mentioned, like obviously that is like a trigger for tons of different biological organisms and like
Right.
cycles and everything. Like
Yeah.
there's so much.
I
depends
mostly
on
think of algae.
it. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah.
Like there's a lot of sunlight that fucks up those ponds. Let me tell you.
Algae blooms. Yeah, probably.
Dude, I'm glad that's what you think about, because that was like the last thing on my list to think about, dude.
I'm just like, man, ponds turn green
you're
real
not-
quick with sunlight.
If you're not thinking about algae, what are you thinking about?
But yeah, what I was getting at it. So you're accustomed to those sort of things when you're hunting animals, and like photo period. It's in terms of our human calendar, it's consistent every year. The problem with spring bear is their activity. When they wake up in the spring, when they go to feed, like all their behavior during that time that people hunt them, it's not photo period based. It's weather and temperature based. So bears can get up, like the same bear might get up 3 weeks later, in 2025 versus 2024.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Hitting that snooze button like I do in the mornings lately. It's like, and then I get up right away. It's gonna take a while. I watched some like I got little kids, and they were watching some who freaking knows, some show on Disney where it's like, I don't even know how these camera guys get these cameras in these places that can get a chipmunk jumping in slow motion over a log.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's all these tiny creatures, but one of them was like some mouse sleeping in this like log, and it was like sometimes they don't come out of hibernation, they just die because they struggle to wake up. Once they go to hibernation, then they just don't stop. And it's like if they don't come out of it in time, like they're in trouble. But if they do, then it's like they need to eat immediately. They got to find food fast, or it's like game over for them. So they have like two things working against them: food and sleepiness. And that made me think of the bear situation, like coming out of hibernation. Yeah, like you said, probably way more weather based than not.
Yeah.
In the photo period.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like I'm just related to that, man. Like all the population dynamics are real dependent on it too, right? Because they have their cubs when they're hibernating.
Wait.
So
they have their cubs when they're hibernating?
Sows give birth while they're sleeping. Yeah, while they're hibernating.
That's gonna make a lot of moms real jealous.
You bring up a good question.
I had a baby. I was so tired.
Well, and you can see the
What?
just think of the implications of that, right? So like then like say there's like some warm spell or something that like prompts them to wake up. But then if it's cold or snowy after that, like they're like, I don't know, and Cliff will be able to speak on like their early season, like what they eat when they come out.
I am
but
learning
I'd
so much.
imagine it's like all these tender grasses that are starting to grow
Sure.
as it warms up. And if all of a sudden you have a difference in temperature or like weather, you get snow, those baby cubs are gonna, keep, drinking mama's milk, but mama's milk is she's gonna need food. Otherwise, there's a chance that could dry up.
Drop the resource. Dude, I did not know that. I did not know that. I don't know how many other people just learned something new right now, but I did.
No, dude, they're interesting, man. But I think to your squirrel point, if I mean, if conditions aren't right, they didn't go like into hibernation with enough body fat, the cubs will die because, like as you alluded to, they're not getting fed to the extent they need, and the bears will die. Like you'll hear biologists say, "Oh, it's just a really harsh winter, long winter." Like we think X percentage of bears just never came out of the den. So it's like the same deal, man. That's when that's
Should've, like-
basically when they like winter kill, you know.
Wow. I mean, that's a great way to go, though. Honestly, like, I never woke up.
Yeah, yeah, you never woke up. I mean, dude, they're cool. I don't know how if you guys have hunted them, out your way, but they're a neat animal too, man. The other thing is I mean, not to get all nerd out on
That's pretty fun.
biological things,
I'll
but
try
they're one of the few animals that delays implantation too. I may be using the wrong term.
What's implantation?
So they'll get bred during the bear rut, which is like most places like first week of June, but they don't start their actual gestation. Like they can delay the start of gestation.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
I think it's based when
Again,
they
really
actually
tell
start
it.
to den.
I think the term mama bear is not being used correctly because if
So they literally like hold that in there like a fertilized egg, and then they like wait till the conditions are right for them to hibernate to start.
Well, I mean, I just know that it's delayed, so it depends on when it gets. They get the right conditions, and then it'll, they'll start their gestation period.
dude,
Nature is crazy.
biology and nature, man, what the
That's
It's
like
wild.
the
It's
turkey
wild,
thing.
dude.
That's like the turkey thing we learned about the pecking order. Remember we were talking about we learned all about the reaping, and they said like, if the dominant bird gets shot or gets killed or whatever, then like even subordinate birds, if they like physically breed a hen, the hen like will like biologically block it from actually taking.
yeah, like Jake.
So
they can breed
can't
all day long, but like
have,
it's not
like,
getting the
they
goalie has
can't
not been
fertilize
removed.
the egg.
Yeah,
Which
the,
I
the
was
hen's
like,
like, nah, bro, you're not the one.
rejected.
You can do me all day, but it's not going to result in anything but dry humping. Like, sorry, pal.
I never knew that. Nature's cool.
Yeah, no, it is, dude. Oh, do you know the other one? Mountain lions. If they have 3 cubs, all 3 cubs can be from different dads.
What?
No shit.
Yeah, dude.
Could you imagine?
That's wild.
Triplets. No, I had sex with 3 dudes.
Get Maury Povich out there. You are not the father. You are the father.
Holy crap.
That's wild.
So 3 different DNAs, like those are 3 complete. I mean, talk about like siblings already different enough as it is, but like now you talk about different dads, like, whoa, that's crazy.
So I can see the picture behind you, Cliff. You've got the mountain lion photo. How long have you been doing that? I'd imagine you've been doing that for quite some time, or is that a different season when you're normally in Puerto Rico now?
Oh, lion hunting? This picture. Yeah, dude, that lion. So that's the last lion that I shot. I think probably the last lion that I'll ever shoot. But I never was a commercial guide for lions, and I purposely stayed out of it because it was kind of like once I wrapped up all my elk seasons and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever worked like a seasonal gig, but it doesn't matter what it is and how much you love it. After a season, like you're ready to be done, And so lion hunting was always kind of it's like go have my own fun hunts. And I was really into it for 4 or 5 years. And then I got where and to this day, I still love going. I don't have any interest in shooting any more of them,
Mhm.
but they're super fun to hunt, and it's a good time to be out in the winter,
Do you use
but
dog for that or no? Oh yeah. there's dog.
yeah, primarily dog hunting. I mean, there's some exceptions to that, and I think it's actually kind of cool. There's a few people I know that have like walked out tracks and killed lions. But it's pretty. It's like I mean, dude, I bet it's less than 1% of the lions are harvested that way.
Well, but what I learned this about dogs. I didn't know this until we had Houndsman XP on the podcast. Gentleman's name off the top of my head. It doesn't matter. It does, but I don't have it right now. But he had said, well, dogs will tree the bear or the lion, and then you can identify the sex or the gender, as well as like the maturity of the animal, and then you could decide to not shoot it, and you'd actually then withdraw. And I didn't realize that that's what dogs are doing. And I think there's a huge misconception. Not I think there is about why dogs are being deployed and what you can get from that. So I had no concept of that at all until I talked to him, and I was like, holy shit, well, that's interesting. Go figure. So you're like using them not only to just get the animal in an ethical spot potentially, but also to like
Make
determine
a-
should you even be shooting this one or not?
Yeah.
Because how else would you know? It's crazy.
Yeah, man. And I mean, to your point, dude, well, part of it for sure is effectiveness, right? Like it's just hard to hunt them without dogs.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you could get into like a nuanced conversation about it, but every time I see somebody who kills one like spot and stock, and usually those are cases where you were glassing for mule deer or something, and you're in a state where you can have a lion tag that overlaps, and then people will shoot them. It's awesome. Like I'm not dogging anybody that does that, but there is a part of me in my thought process, having hound hunted a lot, I'm like, you really have no idea if the lion you just shot has cubs. Because if it's got little bitty cubs, they might not be with her. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas a guy with hounds will always know. You know what I mean? Like if like, first of all, guys with hounds, they never will turn out on a female that they know has cubs. So if the cubs are big enough to be traveling with her, they won't turn out on cubs and a female. And then even if they aren't traveling with her and they turn out on her and they get her in a tree, they're going to know that she's lactating. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're not going to shoot her. I mean, the reality is most of the lying, like the real hounds guys, I mean, it's like every culture of hunting, right? Every culture of hunting kind of has their own, you could call it whatever you want, ethics, or, just what's cool, what's not cool, whatever, you know how that stuff goes, right? I'm sure you guys
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
have the same thing, but lying guys, like most pretty hardcore lying guys, they won't shoot a female, period. That's just like not in their code. I mean, some of the guys that I hound hunted with for years, I mean, they had whole sets of dogs, like, their whole life was dedicated to it. A bunch of them have never killed a lion.
Wow.
Hmm.
Even
But
though, yeah.
yeah, and a big part of it is that a lot of states, like in order to hunt lions, somebody with the group has to have a tag. So a lot of hounds guys, they don't want to be dependent on always having a hunter, and they want, how dog guys are, like they want to, a big part of it is having dogs. They want to go have fun with their dogs. So a lot of them will not kill a lion, even if it's a huge one, because they don't want to give up the opportunity to hunt the rest of the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely.
So
Now,
so
just
y-
by sorry, how you're speaking about it, I'm gathering that the tag is probably good for male or female cat.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that
most states.
choice is just like the choice of the hunter. And is there any law against, like, obviously we wouldn't want to be shooting a female cat that has cubs? Is there a law protecting that? Like if they have small cubs and you see it, like you're not supposed to shoot, or
Yeah, you're not supposed to. And then they specifically, so man, you can't like I haven't been like reading the rule book. I haven't
Yep.
lion hunted in a couple of years, but there's some specific things, like say like a state of Colorado, that they know they can't enforce, but they specifically ask like lion hunters not to do. And one of them is is turning out on females with cubs. You know what I mean? And that's like a pretty, like nobody wants to do that. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And I mean, you can turn out on a tom, and then that tom has, you don't realize that tom's been following a female, and then your dogs are now you got a female that's treed, right? Because the dog's changed to the female. But so those are all things that they ask you to do. And the other thing is I think Colorado's still doing it, and every state's a little bit different, but they have you take a like a sex identification test
oh,
when you get your lion tag,
Wow.
just so you can identify them in the tree. I mean, and you kind of got to take that test. It's not like when you tree one, they're feline, so it's not like you tree a tom and you look up and there's just like a big set of nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you still kind of got to know what you're looking for,
Yeah, that's true.
That's
Interesting.
good that they're educating though, and like trying to get people to know that.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun because like we weren't expecting to talk about this, and this is the point of the podcast.
This is
It's like,
awesome.
we can talk whatever we want. We were talking about bear to some degree, and then we got into cats. But was there anything else saying on the bear? Like being a guide, you talked about do anything for a season, and you're gonna be like, I need a break. Like, okay, I'm good for a while on doing this, which I think is really cool that you're like going to Puerto Rico to satiate on like the spearfishing side. And maybe there's an opportunity for you to go on the OK's Fisher podcast to talk about that sometime. I would love to go there here. But like I think we'll just lean harder into the hunt side. But
Sure.
being a guide is a whole different thing. Like you mentioned you sold a guide business. You're still guiding now. How does that work? This is the question I want to ask. What do I want to ask? I don't know. I just want to hear more about guiding as from a guide's
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. And man, I don't want to say that I'm unique, Eric, because I don't, you know, I
Well,
can't like
we're all
s-
unique. But we're
Yeah, I mean,
technically-
dude, part like you could, I mean, if you looked at how my life is structured, a rational human being would probably be like, look, Cliff, you got a lot going on. You should probably quit guiding. Like, probably makes sense for you to quit.
but
Quit.
you
Like,
love it, and that's what I'm hearing. Okay.
yeah. So it's like, well, it's weird, man, because it's a love hate, and I've talked to other guys about this, and not everybody's the same, but there is a group of guides that part of it is they're just kind of always looking forward to the next season. You know what I mean?
So
There's some,
they're not like living in the moment as much as maybe they could be, or is that like
yeah. I mean, I'm not like I don't have a judgment on like if you know.
fuck those guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm just saying that like they're like a lot of guides like they just they'll guide 5 elk hunts a year and they're done. You know what I mean? And then they got another good gig that pays the bills and it's all good. For me, I've always enjoyed I mean, it's always been the same to me. Guiding some spring bear hunts and then guiding a few archery elk hunters, and then I snag a couple mountain goat hunts in September, and then I'm done with that, and then I'm thinking to myself like, oh, okay, now like I'm gonna get a chance to hunt big mule deer, so I'll get a guide some mule deer hunts in October, and then going into November, and then it just goes from there, right? And then it's like, oh, I get to do some lion hunting for myself personally, and then the spearfishing thing you alluded to has always just been like secondary to that. You know what I mean? Like I've always been the mindset of like dude, I've made some probably very poor financial decisions that are based on that mindset, right? Like it's been my opportunity, and I'm just being transparent about it. Like, yeah, I've
We
made a
made
living.
a lot of poor financial decisions. Let me just tell you that
We're right
now.
there with you.
So,
Cliff.
like,
yeah. So like,
we're gonna compare scars here. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's like part of it is that all of those things have allowed me to, all those things that I've guided, and then over time, like built the skill set up and, all of that to guide. I've been able to do a bunch of hunts that, that I don't see another way I could have done it. Like I literally, man, this is going to sound weird. There's times in my life when I've been like, okay, I could go start another business. Like I could go start a car wash business. And no offense to anybody that has a car wash business, just an example, right? I could start that, grind it out. Like I think, and maybe I'm an arrogant guy for saying this or whatever, but I think that I could make $1 million in the car wash business over X amount of years. Like I would do it. Like that's how I feel about it, right? Could be wrong, whatever, but that's how I think about it. But then I think to myself like, the problem with that is that I'm going to be 10 years older when I get the $1 million. So I would rather just, in the next 5 years, I'm going to guide 20 mountain goat hunts. And that's just how I'm going to do it. You see how screwed up I am?
no,
I love that.
That's quite interesting. Like, first of all, you're a typical entrepreneur and that optimistic, you're going to win. It's like going into a fight and realizing like you might win the fight, but you forget that you're going to get punched in the face a bunch to do so.
Yeah.
Like you might win, but like, did you really? Like to what degree? But so there's that. And I think I have a similar problem. I keep starting more shit for reasons I can't understand other than like I feel compelled to do so. I don't know. It's just in me. But the idea that like I've met people like, well, yeah, go retire, like live that lifestyle. But then what? Like all the shit that I want to do when I retire are the things that I'm capable of doing now that I won't be then. And that's a pretty great thought process. I don't think that's a bad thing. And the thing about finances, I find to be fascinating because Gary Vaynerchuk has talked about this. I think maybe Dave Ramsey too, if you're into that. People are really, really unwilling to take a step back to take a leap forward. And especially in finances, like I'm not going to take a demotion. I'm not going to get rid of this fancy car. Like people can only tolerate to some degree being seen moving forward, not backwards. And I do this with deer. I got an 8 point. So next year I'm gonna get a 10 point. I got a 10 point. Next year I'm gonna get a 12 point. Or I got 130. Next year's got to be 150. If I got a 150, I got to be it's like an auctioneer. Like we can only feel good about moving forward, but sometimes you forget you can change your cost of living, how much it costs to like afford your 4 walls, and therefore you don't need to make as much, and thus you could live a happier life. Like you could actually probably live off 50 grand and be like fucking happier than shit, versus the guy that's making 250 a year, that's like just running the rat race and ready to kill himself with that, lineman's belt, like could be pretty sad.
I must be severely broken because I've just
I don't know.
downgraded year after year. Every car I buy is 5 years older than the last
You're
one.
about to take a hell of a quantum leap
I
forward,
don't
then,
seem
Derek.
to have any problem going backward.
But some people really do, and I think a lot of that's due to ego. We talk a lot about that on like our channel in general, and people are afraid to look stupid. So, like, you have enough self-confidence in yourself that you could probably go do the things that you love, and your lifestyle, you can make it fit what you're after. And that's actually pretty rare in and of itself. Like maybe that's the uniqueness here. Like there's very few people. I think the realest people are the ones doing that. A lot of other people struggle with it for whatever reason. Who fucking knows? Like I'm not making mom and dad proud. I'm not looking good to my peers. I'm not driving the truck. Therefore, I'm not a hunter. I had that problem for half a second. Felt good to shed that. Also, it didn't. But there's a lot of that.
My theory on the whole thing, and maybe it's just to make myself feel better more than a philosophical belief, but whatever money you make now, if you made more, you would have the same, like you would just up your expenses and buy more expensive things. So like the amount of money is kind of relevant. Like you're just going to have the same amount of side
The
money.
more you make, the more you spend.
You're going to have nicer stuff,
yeah.
but you're like what you love to do is not going to change.
Yeah.
You're still going to like whether I'm $100,000 more a year, I still am going to want to go hunting. And like, yeah, my piece of shit car takes me to the woods and it's fine. Like a new one would do the same thing. It doesn't matter. I just like to do what I like to do.
My father-in-law asked this question about, like, we were doing some house upgrades. He's like, is it going to change the way you live your life? You're still going to walk downstairs in the morning. You're still going to brew your coffee. You're still going to drink it. You're still going to walk out the door and go to work. I mean, how much is the new floors or the new this going to change your life? Might change how you feel a little bit for a little while, but like, are you going to have buyer's remorse, or are you actually going to improve your life to some degree? I was like, man, that stuck with me. He said that a long time ago, and I've every now and again, I'm like, well, is it going to change your fucking life?
I'm selling my shit, and I'm moving to Puerto Rico to go spearfishing with Cliff. That sounds way more fun.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the thing is it's like, it's still an internal battle for me. Like, I'm not, and
not to diminish what you're going, yeah.
Well, and I'm still somebody that, like, if I was talking to, a younger version of myself or a young guy or gal or whatever, I wouldn't say like write off your financial component, because you still have to be very cognizant of it, particularly if you got a family and all those things. Like, it's real relevant, but it's something I think about all the time. Like, I mean, to your guys' point, I mean, I always think about this, and I think maybe it helps me like check myself a little bit. I remember being 17, 18 years old and thinking like, man, if I ever made 100 grand, I'd never work another fucking day in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you progress through life, and then,
yeah.
and then numbers change,
Yeah. Costly. It's wild, man. It's very interesting. I think it's hard. It's hard to have enough discipline to cap your life or like your lifestyle at a certain threshold. Like, you don't need to go get the newest car. Maybe you do. I don't fucking know, but like, I don't. And that doesn't mean I don't want it, though.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
You have to want the other things more than that thing, and realize that that's not the thing that's going to make you happy. That's actually going to make you miserable. Like, we build a lot of us build our own prisons. Like, slavery is not something that's in the past. It's happening right now, and we do it to ourselves. Like, there's guys that have to wear a suit every day. There's guys that can't say what they want because, like, heaven forbid, their boss hears it, or the wrong person in their political spectrum hears it. Like, like there's prisons everywhere, and we all live in some version of it, because we all have to like answer to something. We're all master to something to some degree. The guy that has nothing, that's the free person, and I think that's like a lot of the stoicism stuff that I read about every day. So like that's probably where that's coming from at this particular
A
moment.
lot of that ego, right,
Yeah.
comes with those possessions.
Yeah, the guy with real power is the guy that you can't take anything away from. Like that's yeah. So I think we're all pretty powerless by and large, unfortunately. But I mean, it sounds like you've carved out something that you thoroughly enjoy, though. Like we didn't even get to the elk or anything like that yet, and just on the guiding side of things, like being responsible for another human's life out in some like rugged terrain, that freaks me out, dude. That's a lot of responsibility.
I guess
Like-
that's a question that I can kind of segue into that I've been wondering. So you had your own guiding business, made the decision to sell that. Like I get how the guiding, like you had your own crew, you brought in hunters. So now not having your own outfit per se, like how do you go about making your money in guiding? Like are you working for, a different guide? Are you working for outfitter? Like what are you doing, or how are you making those connections? Is it just word of mouth, people are seeking you out, or how does that all work? Just curious.
Yeah, man. So I mean, it was a long period of time that I outfitted in a more traditional sense. And, probably at my peak, man, I was dealing with like somewhere between 300 and 400 hunters a year.
Oh,
You know
what?
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so at that point,
And you're just one. Like you were just one outfitter guy. That's a big market. Then that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, it all depends on how, there's all these different segments of hunting. Like that's in the spectrum of, businesses, like even at that size, you're very much a small business. You know what I mean? From like a revenue standpoint or whatever. What comes with that is that I was no longer, when I got to that level, I was no longer guiding. I was much more just running a business like any other entrepreneur and dealing with the same things they were, right? Like
Sure.
the financial component and, having, 15, 20 guys for me, like all of that stuff. Which is not like I dislike that. And I as a business, there's a lot of things I really liked about it. I could talk to you for hours about why I chose to sell it, but it's probably like a subject for another
Maybe a
podcast.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like I was mixed on it, and to this day, I'm happy I did, but I'm not necessarily like there's pros and cons, right? Of not no longer owning a business. But one of the big issues that I had was, and you alluded to it right there, is like when I'm guiding somebody, I tend to have fun. I tend to have a lot of fun guiding an individual or two people or whatever. When I woke up in the morning, I mean, dude, there was days in like a November morning, I wake up after some like hellacious snowstorm, and I had 90 horses and mules up in a wilderness area, and I had it like 15 guys up there.
You don't have a
And
lot of gray hair in your beard, dude. I don't know how you pulled that off.
Yeah, well, I just trimmed it. You know what I mean? Or yeah, I do like so.
I wake up to emails and I'm like, oh, I fucked that up,
Yeah,
And in your, it's like fucking something up could be like, I joke in marketing, we're not saving lives, but in guiding, you're not necessarily, well, maybe you're saving them, but you're certainly like trying to safeguard them, and you don't want to wake up losing them, or arms, or fingers, or toes, or other weird shit that can happen on mountains and snow.
Yeah. No, it's like that's like the stressful part. I mean, dude, every outfitter, when you're at that level, like you're gonna kill some horses and mules every year, and even that, dude, I hated that, man. Like I hated if a mule broke its leg, or that means it's dead. And I mean, a lot of dude, I always laugh because some of my horses and mules, they like those were my long-term employees. Like most of my guides like came and went, dude. But I had to shoot some of my longest term employees. You know what I mean?
Like fucking Steve, man, best guy I ever had, best mule,
dude. Like, dude, I vividly remember shooting a mule named Abe. And the thing about this mule, he was probably like, 27, 28 years old. So he in his lifetime, he'd already seen a bunch of doofuses like me come along. You know what I mean? Like he,
This fucking guy.
yeah, exactly.
Good
He's
clip.
sitting there like, oh, here's another jackass that I had to train up here, you know. But it's weird. You get attached to him like they're an employee, and then it's like a very weird dynamic because look, he's got a broken leg, like he's dead. You're like you're 8 miles in the wilderness. So you gotta, you know, it's like I hate that. I hated that part of it, you
That's
know.
awful. Yeah, I would fucking hate that too. Damn it.
So yeah, like that part of it, I'm glad I don't do that anymore. To your point about guiding, I actually find it really enjoyable, man. And like, not to get corny about it, but I've moved to like a certain type of clientele. A lot of my clientele are what I would call late onset hunters now. And part of that is that I've kind of purposely geared, you know, my branding and stuff towards that. But part of that is that I can for the most part choose who I'm going to personally guide.
Mhm.
And I love taking those people because, dude, if I take a guy on his first elk hunt, or it doesn't really matter if it's elk hunt, I could take him on a freaking pig hunt. It doesn't matter to me. If I take a guy who's never gone hunting and he's just like, holy shit, this is incredible. I find like a ton of value in that, dude. And it's weird, man, because I have kids, and if that person has kids, I have this weird. It's like even more interesting to me
A
because
lot of
it's like,
connective
oh,
tissue. Yeah.
yeah, it's like they're
Wow.
gonna do this with their kids. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of setting them on this path that like you're blazing a trail with them, like literally
And it's
and metaphorically.
it's
but
really powerful to be the person who gets to do that for someone. So I definitely see the opportunity you're talking about and how you're kind of like going for that, because that's you kind of you get to you get to be the one who shows them the best parts and to take care of it and to really leave like that positive lasting effect in them.
well, you can probably see it in their face. You can see
Oh,
those,
yeah,
like light up
sure.
moments, and that's a hard moment to find for people in any career path. I think you probably see more of it in yours, and that's probably what keeps it like being this really exciting thing that you get to do. You know, when you're like, did I make the right financial choice to be doing this every so often when I can make easy money doing this other thing? It's not really about the money. It's about something else. It's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, it keeps you interested and keep doing it. You know, probably kind of chasing and dude, like it's for sure. Like I think about this stuff a lot, man. It's for sure partially self-serving because you want like that makes you excited that, oh yeah, I got this guy like into something. He's gonna like you're like, okay, I kind of changed this guy's existence probably a little bit, which is cool. I mean, everybody's done it. Everybody's got like a non-hunting buddy that they talked into hunting who's like
Oh, I got a
totally.
bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and usually when you take them, there's also like a part of like total hilarity that goes along. I mean, there's something hilarious about taking
I'm like,
somebody
I
like
hope they like this. I hope I didn't totally ruin it for them.
which
That's
dude,
my-
some guys it doesn't click for. You know what I mean? Like some guys just like they're not gonna do it, which is all good too. But you know, it's like the whole thing. And the thing is this weird deal. You guys probably see it with your non-hunting buddies. If you grew up around it or you've been in the hunting world a lot, when you take somebody that's outside of it, it's like it's so absurdly foreign to them, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's
yeah.
like you're speaking a different language.
Yeah, and you get it's like so Derek hosts the Dropping Pins podcast, which is like this podcast that's designed around like getting the aha moments from people that have reached a level that the rest of us like would wonder about. And rather than talk about the tactic and the strategy and the gear, it's like let's rewind the clocks and go back to the aha moments where things started to really click and make sense. What were the light bulb moments for you? And why did that stand out to you when you were trying to make your path into like this? In the case of Dropping Pins, it's about hunting and killing mature whitetails, which is really hard to do.
Sure.
And that like whole when you bring someone new hunting, you're like, fuck, I'm at mile marker 500. They're at mile marker 1. How do I talk
Yeah.
about this to them in a way that like I don't remember anymore what I cared about when I was 4? Like I don't know how to teach this. Like it's crazy. You have to like bring yourself way down. And even the terminology you use, like I've even stopped to ask some questions. Can you define this? Can you explain that? Like that's happening on repeat to someone. They're just nodding because they probably don't want to sound stupid like me. Like I'm comfortable sounding stupid because I'm representing an audience that, well, I'm not saying our audience is stupid. I'm saying like they're trying to learn and I get to play dumb and it's good because I am dumb. So I like it to learn.
You're full of shit.
But to that end, it's really hard to take something that you are literally an expert at and be like, well, here's the poop.
We call it
Yeah.
we call it scat, and like, but it just means that they were here once. Like, we got to look at the track. Well, that's not a mature track. That's a juvenile track, and it's headed the wrong direction actually. And they're walking a trail that like we're not going to hunt this trail because like this is used at nighttime. We want to find where these things are moving in daytime, and we want to find a big track. And like, you know, when I was starting to hunt, it's like, wow, there's poop, there's tracks. The deer must be here. Let's hunt now. Like, you didn't like realize there's more puzzle pieces to be putting together. You only had like your preschool puzzle where like you could put Ronald McDonald together in like 4 fucking pieces. Well, now it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, and you're like, Jesus, it's in 3D. Like, how the hell
There's
does
a
this
front
work?
Right.
and a back.
Yeah, like what am I doing? It's just wild. So being a guide, like I don't know how you, and to some point you probably don't have to like teach them everything. That's kind of why you're there. You're just kind of there to bring them through the journey, and they're relying on your expertise. It's a little, I don't know how it is. I'm not a guide.
Yeah, you get a mix on that, man. You get guys. It's and again, dude, it's changed a little bit. Like who I guide, you know, there's still a big segment of the traditional guided market is guys that they want the guide to you know, this would be the extreme case, but they want the guide to basically do everything. They want to pull the trigger, right? And I mean, I've been in the hunting business my whole life, so it's not like I have great friends and great clients who that is exactly them. So I'm not passing judgment on a person like that. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have guys that they want to ask you about everything, even to the extent that if it is a detriment to the hunt, they want you to explain it. So everybody's a little bit different on that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Guys tick a little bit different. On that one, it's
Do you have like an intake form to gauge that? Like when someone's booking a guide with you, so you kind of know what you're getting into? Like,
yeah,
experience level, desire-
now I do. Now I do.
Okay. What does that look like?
Yeah.
What kind of questions are you asking people?
So I ask people, you know, I ask people like what they want out of hunting. You know, I even ask them like in my little survey, I have like, hey, like what's important to you? You know, the experience, the meat, the trophy, like all of the, you know, I ask them to kind of rank these things just to give me a feel for what, you know, what their mentality is. And I don't care. I mean, it's not like if a guy comes to me and he's like, I just want to kill a giant bull. It's not like I'm like gonna like screen him out. You know what I mean? It's just good information that I want to know. And so the question of like what skill sets they're interested in learning. Some guys don't check anything, which is all good. And some guys check all of it. So I have a good feel for that nowadays before I book somebody.
That's such an important part that I would hope, and maybe they do, but maybe most guides, that's part of their process. But man, you're shaping the experience for someone. And like when we went to Oregon, we were only there for like 5 days, but we hunted in like 4 different ways, I would say. Like we did still hunting up in Oak Flats, and then we did glassing and clear cuts, and then we did like hiking through and glassing in the, you know, ridges, and like there's a bunch of different things. We did rattling and like
For sure.
And the trophy
Picking-
wasn't huge.
and like I was glad we got to do all of it, right?
Yeah.
But like if there was a specific skill someone wanted, being able to say like, hey, can we try to do this on our spring bear hunt? Like I'd really love to shoot, you know, one out in a clear cut. Like that's
You know what
that's
mine
such
would be?
important.
How do we see a bear? If we see a bear, you have earned your money. If we don't, the adventure in and of itself, you have earned your money. Like I just want some hardcore shit, maybe some cool scenery, and if we see one, bonus. If we get an opportunity, double bonus. If I get one, triple bear bonus.
I'll take you.
You know, like I'm just trying to go experience shit. Like there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
to this. I don't know how you mitigate that, because I imagine some people are like, well, are we gonna see something? Are we gonna get like, no, dude, hopefully that's the point. You're gonna have your best odds. The odds are ever in your favor if you book with me, but like there's no guarantee. You might fuck up
Right.
the shot. Maybe you suck. I don't know. I would.
Yeah, dude, it's another good topic, man, because it's another reason that I probably got out of my outfitting business a little bit. And it's weird because I have this discussion with other guides and outfitters all the time, and everybody's a little different. Like a big part of the hunting industry, there's actually like pretty controlled variables, right? Like it could be that it's like, and there's lots of variations of that. Like when I say something like that, a lot of people are like, oh, you're talking about high fence guys in Texas. Okay. Yeah, they would fall into that category. It's pretty controlled. But also like if you're a public land guide in Arizona on an elk tag that takes 25 points for a guy to draw, it's pretty controlled. You know what I mean? Like you're going to see some elk, like sure, there's going to be this variation on, how big of an elk you find, all of these things, right? But it's getting a little more controlled. You get into, a lot of the Indian reservations that are really tightly managed. Again, pretty controlled environment. Private ranches, pretty controlled environment. But man, when you get into the wilderness guiding, it's like the other end of the spectrum. It's not controlled. Like in terms of what you're going to see, the quality of the animals, the weather, all of that, it's not controlled at all. And man, that part of it's hard to explain how much it'll wear on you. Like the variability in a business that and like the key to the outfitting business is to always outfitting and guiding business is to always try to manage people's expectations. Like you kind of got to like a good outfitter, a good guide will always undersell. You know what I mean? Like they'll always like, or at least they'll like really give you the what a shitty year looks like, what a good year looks like. Because they're trying to mitigate that you have like some crazy expectation. Like it's a really good indicator of like a good guide or an outfitter. But a lot of guys will just do it for the reason I'm about to get to here, is that having upset people, regardless of like the money and everything else, sucks. I mean, it sucks. So, and if you have that, if you're guiding or outfitting and you've got a lot of variability, it means like you take wilderness elk guiding, right? And say like any of the big wilderness areas, the Flat Tops, the San Juans, the Bob Marshall, the Selway, the Frank Church, any of that stuff. And you're going to have weeks where the conditions suck and a whole elk camp gets skunked. You know what I mean? Like imagine having 6 guys in a wall tent camp in the middle of nowhere and nobody kills a bull. And then 2 weeks later, it could look like a freaking massacre. You know what I mean? You have freaking dead mule deer and elk quarters and shit all over the place. You know what I mean? But the variability is really hard, man, as a service provider.
Like the beginning of the episode, like the photo, whatever the terminology is there that I'm not going to get right. Like
photo period.
Photo period. Like that's got to be really hard to navigate when you have like, look, this is my PTO. This is when I'm booking. This is my plane ticket. I'm going to arrive this day. And we're going to get whatever we get at that duration. And maybe it's a miss. Like, do you have ways to pivot the expectations or parry like I say, parry in boxing, like parrying a punch to be like, well, let's do this instead, or we're going to maximize this way, or maybe the herd is here or the bears are there. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. How do you navigate some of that when you're talking about managing those expectations when people have like, no, man, I booked a year ago or 2 years ago because I had to do it this way?
Yeah. And there's like the tag element in addition to that. So you typically, if guys are going, like they've booked 18 months, 2 months out, like we're going regardless of the conditions are bad or not. So of course you're going to change your strategy and everything else to accommodate that. Like, I mean, for a hard example, if you're elk hunting and the elk are spread out because there's no snow, right? You're rifle hunting, there's no snow from, 7,000 feet to 13,000 feet. And it could be November 1st. It means that, relative to a normal year, the elk still have 5 times the amount of habitat that they would typically. So they're just going to be dispersed all over that, which all that really means from a practical sense is that you're going to have to get to higher points. You're going to have to glass like more country at once. You got to, you just got to find like where the elk are in this massive landscape of good habitat. And all of those things I just said equate to a harder hunt. It's just harder physically. Like I can tell you, Eric, like I can call you up a week before and be like, man, this hunt's it's going to be tough. Like we're having a hard time killing elk. We're going to have to ride like 3 hours in the morning. And like most guys, when they compute that, when they hear an outfitter say that, they're like, oh, I can do that. And then when you start doing it for a couple of days, like, Jesus, you know what I mean? Like it's rough, you know what I mean?
And like the harder the time, the better the memory, in my opinion. If it's too easy,
that's the way. Yeah, that's the mindset.
it really isn't. It's like, yeah, we went and we saw and we killed. I'm like, oh, that was a good time. Like versus we fucking got into it, man. Oh
Yeah.
boy, I'm never gonna forget this hunt. Let me tell you about it. Like we almost died. Some shit went south, but we got them. You know, like totally different narrative when it's harder. And I personally thoroughly enjoy that. I also seem to enjoy suffering in most regards of life.
This is
So
true.
something's, you know, obviously not right with me, but I like
No,
that.
that, I mean, that's a good mentality for hunts that are variable. Because I will agree with you, man. Like if you get a guy and he shows up and he kills the elk the first morning on one of those type of hunts, you almost
You feel like, wow, that's it. Like shit.
Cheated.
yeah, they kind of missed out on a little bit of the struggle, you know.
Yeah, like what am I going to do now? Like nature hike the rest of the time? What the fuck am I gonna do?
Yeah.
All right, I guess we got one. I mean, those aren't bad stories either, but it's just different. It's just like, yeah, we got it like on day one. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
now
I mean,
what?
my favorite clients, I mean, a lot of outfitters will say the same thing, but my favorite clients are guys that I've guided on good hunts and bad hunts. Because then you can, because then they've
Oh,
seen the good.
yeah, that's a good point. Like you have repeat business. You were with me through the thick and the thin, and you understand. And like that's cool. I mean, that's relationship stuff. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, that's my favorite, dude. And I like using those guys as references too. Cause they'll tell a guy like, hey, dude, when it's shitty, like this is what it's like. And then when it's good, this is what it's like, those are the best dudes. But it's funny you say the relationship thing with guiding. It's weird, man. Like if you guide a long period of time, like some of your best friends are guys that hunt with you every year. You know what I mean?
You said it before, Cliff, because you said you're in the service industry. And I think that's something that and I want to ask you a question about my cousin who's going to be going to guide school this spring, because that's something he would like to do. But I thought it was really great that you said that you're in the service industry, because you really are in a people business. Like the hunting is like what you're doing with the people. But like I use that analogy kind of all the time in teaching. I'm a high school teacher, and with other teachers, you're teaching kids, you're teaching people, not your subject. And like the more you realize that you're in the service industry and your job is to like take care of the person, and the hunt is kind of secondary, like everything seems to go better. And that's where good relationships come from. And that's where all the learning and the connection comes from. You're not just hunting, right? Like your job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like you are in the service industry.
Take care of the
for
person.
sure.
The scoreboard will take care of itself. That was that Bill Belichick was like, take care of play the game, and the scoreboard will take care of itself, kind of thing. Focus on the person, and hopefully, you got to know the hunt side too. But
for sure,
interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean again, like there's a spectrum in outfitting guiding. Like there's different types of services, but in the end, it's still a service. But I feel like there's a little bit of a even amongst hunters, there's always this perception of like, outfitters or wildlife pimps. You know what I mean? Basically, like you're buying wildlife from an outfitter. And the problem is that can kind of infiltrate the mentality of a guide or an outfitter too. And then it's, it's really hard to operate with that mindset, because that's really just even on the economics and how you run your business. That's not what you're doing. You're not, I mean, there's exceptions to that, but like if we go, and it's, again, it's not a negative. I'm not like putting it in a negative light, but like if you take high fence stuff, it's a little more like that. There's animals in, animals are coming out, right? There's a different deal. But a huge chunk of outfitting and guiding, it's not that it's partially a service business. That's really all it is. Like a huge proportion of guiding and outfitting, I have no control over tags. I have no control of, the opportunity you're going to have, any of that outside of the service that I'm providing. Like I can't put more animals on the landscape for you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I can't make there be 3 more feet of snow so the elk are easy to get to.
Well, that's interesting.
You know,
So like, oh God, stupid stoicism. Sorry, everybody, but like you can't control things. By and large, most things you cannot control. You can control your reaction. And my thought is, there's a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by one of the Horowitz brothers. I forget, it wasn't Andreessen Horowitz, is the other one, Ben Horowitz. And it talks about like being a wartime CEO is very different than being a peacetime CEO. And one of the like tenets is you have to like as a CEO, your composure during wartime has to be like really like locked in. And for you being a guide in these tumultuous like conditions where you don't have control over any of the variables, how are you holding yourself to a degree of like you can't show your frustration or you can't show your fear or like because if you start to show those things, suddenly now your customer or your client is gonna like start to pick up on that, and that then they might have a bad time because you're being a jackass or in a shitty mood, or like you're this is you can't take on that. Maybe some guides do. I imagine they do, but the good ones I suspect probably do a good job of being the wartime CEO and the stoic person that is like controlling the reaction to the events around them. How are you doing that in these crazy ass situations with these people that you just met, that you're forging deep bonds with, and like, I'm assuming you're getting to know these people really well because you're seeing a side
yeah.
that most people never get to see.
Dude, it's funny, man. Like, I think on a single hunt, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this with friends that you've known for long periods of time, and then you go on a single hunt with them, and like that 5 days you're hunting with them is probably more meaningful to your relationship than the years you knew them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's very relevant with clients. I used to always, my dad was a guide too, and he always makes this joke, and it's kind of like when you're a hunting guide, you're kind of like a dude's mistress in a way, right? Because you have this, like, he loves you, you have this, like, each other really well, but when the dude dies, the family doesn't even know who the hell you are. They don't call you. They don't know
The funeral, right? Like,
yeah, dude, I know. I have several clients like that. These dudes are like they're my boys, man. Like, I love these guys. I love seeing their face every day. Every time they showed up for elk season, and then one day they vanished. And then I had like, a few of them I figured out over time. Like somebody finally told me, like, oh, he died. It's like, nobody told me, dude. He's like one of my good friends.
Yeah, good point.
That is interesting.
Oh, that's wild.
Because their family they don't know who the hell the hunting
You're
guide
like
is.
the military. You go to war with people, you go to boot camp with people, like you know each other at a level that like no other. And for that reason, then when you get back to civilian world, they're kind of like we don't talk anymore. But like we know each other real well. But like bring that guy around my family. Like, and then when you do, it's weird. Like it's not normal because you guys have some fucking weird inside jokes that no one else can comprehend.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, man. It's that's how it is. It's kind of a funny deal. But dude, I got off. I didn't answer your question. Oh, you're talking about like the
How do you control yourself? Like, how do you like? Do you have any things that you're like? No, I fucking train all the time. So when these things happen, I'm good to go. Or like, I don't know, whatever the answer is.
No, so I used to deal with this within my own head, but I used to deal with it with like 10 guides working for me at the same time. And you get all these correlating things, man, because I alluded to it earlier, but when the hunting gets tough, when the hunting's good, everybody's all hunters are happy, guides are happy, stuff runs smoothly. Even if you're in a type of guiding business that's got a little variability to it, as long as conditions are good or average, it's all good if you're running a decent business. But when things flip, the problem is everything correlates because now everybody's riding further, everybody's hunting longer days, and so everybody, all your personnel, and if you yourself are guiding, like you're getting just run down at the same time that you're not picking up the bonus of killing stuff, and people, that's the reality of hunting. When some stuff is getting harvested, like people are a little happier, right? So it's all bad when it's all bad. So I used to have to manage this with my crew, and I would like, what I'd always come back to is, guys, like everything that's controllable, like even the stupid minutia, man, the food, the cots in the camp, keeping the snow off the wall tent, like all of those controllable things. Are we doing those up to the standard that we agreed to? And that was like, when it gets tough, that's what you fall back on. Like, we're doing everything that we can control. And then beyond that, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
What's the quote? It's like, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training, kind of thing. Like that's like you have to have that baseline
Otherwise, you lose
Yeah.
your shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you also have, you know, the thing that's, and this goes with all hunting, but it's real relevant in guided hunting is a lot of times people, and even this is the same deal that like do it yourself elk. Like if you're from Ohio and you've got 3 or 4 buddies and you want to go to Colorado and you're going to go elk hunting and you're going to do it on your own, right? Like lots of guys do this. I interact with a bunch of guys via my YouTube channel and stuff like that. There's thousands of guys doing this every year, and they run into the same problem that I ran into in outfitting, is that everybody's going to be on the same page when you leave Ohio. Like, this is going to be tough. You know what I mean? It's going to be tough. Everybody said it's going to be tough, you know, but if it actually ends up being tough, about 2/3 of the way through, somebody all of a sudden decides that nobody told them it was going to be tough. you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, we all like, oh god, I know.
This is bullshit.
I went to the Boundary Waters, and it's my buddy Dave's birthday today. I got to send him a text. This is a good reminder. But I went to the Boundary Waters with him and 2 other buddies. And night one. Okay, so day 1 starts at 2 a.m. We drive 10 hours to get there. Then we get there and we can't find our entry point for like you have to like call ahead and get ahead. Like you have to get your entry point to the Boundary Waters. Well, it turns out it was on like this large mouth of this giant lake, Magnetic Lake. We didn't realize that. By the time we did realize it, all the fuckery that went into figuring out where that was like ate up a lot of time. So by the time we started getting into our like core area and portaging and shit, Dave was in charge of the maps. Dave, if you're listening to this, that was a mistake. And we all know this. I opted to be the map guy, someone who took land nav courses, and he wanted to do it. And I said, fine, you can do it. Shouldn't be that difficult. He misjudged a portage, which had us thinking we were at a different spot than we actually were by like some ridiculous degree. And it turned almost disastrous. It got dark fast. Our 2 canoes of 4 people got separated. We weren't prepared for it to be nightfall, and like I ended up climbing a cliff face to like discover there was someone camping at the first spot we thought we were going to camp. We couldn't find our next portage. By the time we did, it was like one of the longer portage of our entire trip, which was like night 1. Now it's like 10 p.m. We're tired. We've been up since 2 a.m. We were excited. We drove. We canoed a bunch.
That's a motivation killer.
We got
right
really
there.
excited to like really, oh shit, this is getting serious. This is getting dangerous. We need to figure this out real quick. And then we get to this portage, and Dave was like, well, let's make a contraption to drag this canoe because this is a long portage. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? You just grab the damn canoe and you drag it. This is a brute force situation. Like, we are brute forcing this thing. We're dragging it the whole damn way. There's not an easy option here, pal. We're not engineering a fucking pulley system in the middle of the night right now. And so it was like night 1. We were like already like
Fighting.
about to kill each other. We get to a spot. There's like lights at the campsite that we're going to maybe get to. I'll just finish up the story. We set up the tent just at a makeshift spot. Like, we got to set up camp right now. It's raining, so everything's wet. And we finally get the tent set up in a quick hurry. We get our sleeping bags laid out. We toke a bowl because I don't know how else to deal with these things. Felt real good, passed out. And then the next morning, the birds were chirping, the sun was shining, the rain had stopped. The people out of the campsites that we were going to book left. We portaged across one more lake real quick, got to the most beautiful campsite we'd ever seen, never saw another person the entire trip. And the rest of the trip was the most amazing thing we'd ever experienced in our life. Hung hammocks, read books, discovered God. The whole thing was amazing. But like, what the shit, man? You know, like, you learn some things about people real quick. Like, this is not an engineering moment. This is a like get it done moment. And I love my buddy Dave to death. He's a damn good friend for a long time. And happy birthday, Dave! If you ever listen to this episode, he's not much of a hunter, so he probably won't. But probably safe. In any event, yeah, you learn things about people in these moments when shit hits the fan real quick, and it could make or break some friendships for sure.
Oh yeah, dude. I've seen some. I've seen guys that camp. You know, I used to do a fair amount of drop camp business. It's like, you know, it's kind of like semi-guided, just pack groups into like a wall tent setup. And I've seen guys that were friends for, you know, for decades, and they left basically no longer friends.
This guy.
Bloody lips.
You're
and
like,
broken
"What-
nose.
so what happened, guys? What was your highlight and low light?"
Dude, I'll tell you a real short one if you got time for it.
Oh, yeah.
we
Oh,
got
yeah.
time.
So I had this guy call. We used to communicate. This is kind of before inReaches were the norm. I used to rent satellite phones for guys. You know, like each camp would have a satellite phone in this drop camp business. And so this guy calls me, and he called me to tell me he killed a bull. And it's kind of like the protocol. They tell me, where where they killed the bull or whatever. But because I could never, you're always trying to figure out how they describe where it's at and where it's actually at. I would always have them go back to the camp, and then myself or guys packing for me would come in with horses and mules, meet the hunter, and then go to the bull, right? This hunter, I kept saying that to him on the satellite phone. And it's always like you're trying to keep the conversation short because they're like $3 a minute type of like phone calls. So I'm like, John, you just meet me at the camp. He's like, nah, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to back to camp. You'll find me. I'm going to just drop down to the trail. Just meet me on the trail. It's like, okay, like if you're going to be on the trail, like we're on the same page, I'll meet you at the trail. And then right as the conversation ends, he goes, hey, just so you know, I've got all my gear. Do you want to just pack me out? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm just thinking for myself, like logistically, and like I got 4 guys in this camp. This guy's coming out with a bull. If he's got his stuff, I'll just grab the bull and I'll grab him. And then when I got to pack the group out, it's one less guy I got to get out. So I didn't really think anything of it. You know what I mean? And then, maybe somewhere during the journey, I asked him like, what the story was, like why he wanted to come out. And he told me he was having like back issues or something. He had like some valid excuse, right? So I go up there, he's on the trail, walk to the bull. And it is kind of weird that he's got like all of his personal gear with him. But I load up the bull, take the guy out, pack him out, take him back to the pack station. He's all happy, doesn't say anything to me. And then I get a call like 18 hours later from the guys in that camp, but they call me from another drop camp that I have on their sat phone because John had taken the sat phone out with him because he had it when he called me.
Oh, shit.
And they go, hey, we have lost John. Like we've been looking for him for 18 hours. And I'm like, dude, I packed that guy out. And I never heard the details of the thing, but I guess they had like a big clash in camp about some stupid shit about cooking or chore, like something, asinine.
God,
And so he went out and killed a bull and left without even telling him.
Holy, and took the backbone.
Yeah. That's epic, huh? Like you like
John
find a
is
new
sipping
drop.
vodka tonics at home, buddy. He's already
He's
gone.
good. Yeah. That's what I do.
I mean, the guys were relieved, but you can imagine the rest of they're like, Jesus, dude, like this guy.
Relieved
know,
and then instantly pissed.
They drew
Yeah.
straws to see who was going to call Cliff and tell him that they lost.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, they're thinking that he's dead. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Oh boy.
What a relief. Oh, you
Wow.
pulled him out. Whoa, shit. You pulled that mother. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen someone go from happy to pissed off so fast in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Holy crap. Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna ask you for like a memorable hunt or like an okayest moment because like God knows we trip over ourselves, drop things, forget stuff. Like as a guide, I don't know if you're comfortable admitting any okayest moments. Like maybe we'd like deter some bookings. I'm not sure.
Okayest moment? Yeah, dude, I got one that actually for some reason just popped in my head. I don't think I've ever told it before.
Oh, good.
It's short too. But I remember I guided this guy and I remember the reason for some reason he sticks in my head is I had this, he wanted to bring a thermal with him. Like a thermal to, no, like thermal, like a night vision thing to pick up thermal signatures. And this was a long time ago. And it was like kind of like a new age deal. It wasn't like now where they're kind of normalized in certain parts of the country. And there was gray areas about the laws. Like in college, it wasn't real clear if you could take them or not. You couldn't use them when you're hunting, but could you scout with them? There's all this bullshit. I dug into it, but I told him I wasn't. I just remember the guy for this reason, for some reason, because we had this debate. Like he kept telling me that he knew better or whatever, but I just told him not to bring it because I was concerned about it. So, anyways, that's how I recall this guy. But I was guiding him, and I remember I used to carry like just an old school GPS, one of the little yellow ones. little cheap, like waterproof one. And for some reason, I remember we go out, we hunt one of my usual glassing points. And then when we saw some elk. And then I wanted to figure out, I saw where they were feeding and I kind of figured I knew where they were going to bed, but it's in a little spot that I'd never hunted them. I figured we'd come back in the morning and try to kill them. But I decided to go out of there a little bit different way than I typically did. And so I went through a bunch of, sometimes what happens is you drop into these big thicks of timber and they have a bunch of downfall in them. So you don't walk straight. You guys have probably experienced this. You end up zigzagging.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like real hard. It's pretty hard to navigate. But I knew those areas so well. Like I typically would not take my GPS out because I could basically get back to camp, right? Even through the timber. So I'm zigzagging around, kind of cruising along, making my way. And I remember right at dark, like, or, like 30 minutes before dark, 20 minutes before dark, that's like prime time to see elk popping out. And anyway, so I've kind of figured out a route for the next morning, and I came around this corner and there's just this like beautiful meadow, and it's got water in the back of it. And it's hidden in the timber there. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, this is an incredible spot. And I've never hunted it before. We're already here. Let's just sit right here and let's watch this, man. Maybe we'll catch an elk peeking out, right at dark. And I probably 10 times I told him like, this is an incredible spot, man. And so of course, like, it kind of gets the excitement level up because I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, this is like a secluded spot, awesome spot. It's all good. Nothing comes out. I don't really think anything of it. And I get back to the tent and I pull my GPS out, man. And I look at the map and dude,
or something.
no, dude. So this spot, I literally I hike through it every single morning, but it was because I was at a different angle. And I had sat there looking at this meadow that literally, dude, I had hiked through that fucking meadow 1,000 times in my life, but I never looked at it. I never told him because I was so embarrassed by it.
And you're like, man, this meadow right now.
Yeah. Dude, I was no way I was going to tell him because it would have been I just like how many times I told him it's like, this is exactly this is like an elky spot right here. And I had walked through it 1,000 times, man. It's like it's like such a main thoroughfare. There's no way in hell you're ever going to kill anything.
The next couple of days, the client's like, man, we should go back to that.
Maybe
good.
That's pretty great.
Oh yeah. No, for some reason that popped in my head.
All right, Cliff, one last question for you. Like I mentioned before, my 18-year-old cousin, his name's Grant, loves to hunt. He's thinking about doing the guiding thing as a career while he's young and doesn't have a family holding him down. So he's actually all booked up to go to guide school. I think it's this spring or summer. He's going to learn how to do all the horses and all that kind of stuff. For anybody who's thinking, hey, this could be a cool route for me, something I would potentially like to do. Do you have any kind of advice or tips that you wouldn't normally think of for somebody who's like, oh, I love hunting, I want to be a guide? Like what kind of advice could you give them? What would you tell a young man who thinks this is the route for him?
So if a guy comes to me and the first thing he says is, I'm a real good hunter, I want to be a guide, that's like, to me, that's one of those like things that pops in my mind is like, man, you really need to get a hold of like what it really is about, because the reality is like guiding anybody, a guy, here's an anecdote. Guys have come to me that aren't hunters at all. They're like a mountain climber, or they could be, they could just be a guy that's, they could be an ex like timber guy who goes and marks timber in like, remote areas or whatever, but's never hunted in his life. I could turn that guy into like 2 seasons. He's going to be an incredible hunter just because of reps. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing intrinsically like you're not, I mean, sure, there's like differences in like, our personalities, and sure, some people are probably born a little bit better hunters, right? If we want to classify as that. But the reality is like anybody can figure out the hunting part when you're in the field, because like you learn, you learn it just by reps. Like you're going to get a hunt more than anybody else gets to hunt. And then you get to compound it because you're doing it in such a short period of time. But the stuff that's hard, like you alluded to the horse deal, like if anybody's going to go to a guide school and they have any intention of doing anything remote, like having the horse skill set is way more valuable than a guy who says, like, I'm an incredible elk caller. Like guys will say that to me, like, oh, like you want to hear me call elk? I'm like, no, dude, because I suck at calling elk and I could kill them all the time. You know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't matter. What matters is that like you go out and you do the hard stuff, man. Like you learn how to deal with horses in the mountains, you know how to shoe horses, you know, all of that stuff is way more marketable in the guiding field than being like, I'm a good hunter. And I know that's like, I don't mean to shit on it because I know that's probably real counterintuitive to people, but hunting, like outfitters view that as like that. I can teach you that on the job, getting you up to speed
Very
on
much
horse.
akin to the regular job market. Like, I can teach you the skills to do the job, but if you're an asshole, like
It's
I
a-
don't want you on my
It's a
team.
personality. Like
I
you
can't
know,
I
you
can't
gotta have
teach
the
good
mindset.
personality traits, but I can teach the job. Like that's all teachable. And honestly, it'd be better
Yeah.
if you came without any of the prerequisites because I can shape you into the way I think is the better way to do it than whatever like toolbox you're gonna bring me. That's like all the shortcut bullshit, black hat magic stuff that is trash. Like I
Right.
don't want to untrain you and relearn you. I'd rather just shape you from the get. I think that's a very valid point. I think you're spot on. That's probably incredibly true.
Well,
And,
and plus,
I
and,
direct you
and
too, for sure. Like I'm waiting to prove that fucking belief
well,
in the next 20 years of my life. Like,
so what was that?
23.
Say that again, Eric. I spoke over you.
Oh,
Sorry, dude.
no, I was speaking over you too. I believe that if I had the time and the reps, I would get to be a mature buck whitetail killer.
Hell yeah.
I just don't have that on my side, so it's not realistic. I think with enough time in the field, it would just happen because you would get the experience and exposure and the lessons and the learnings, and you would make it happen. It's just taking me a lot longer because I don't have the time.
You got it.
Yeah, I mean that's anything, right?
Time.
Derek
Yeah.
finds a way to make a ton of time. I'm not sure how he does it, but he's figured it out. I don't know. And maybe I
But-
have any excuses.
I have a house full of cats there. That's how.
Every time Derek goes hunting, his wife buys another cat. That's like real.
That's
Yeah.
the trade-off.
That's our
But-
system. Yep.
But Eric, you did allude to something in there that is interesting, like the interpersonal skills. It's weird, man. Like as it relates to this statement of a young guy, like telling me how great of a hunter he is. Typically, if that's how a guy starts, he lacks he lacks the interpersonal skills
He's
to deal
already
with
a wrong
hunters.
foot. And he could get there. Like that's the beauty about humans. We do change, and embracing change and like changing your mind. Those are things that we should be embracing and like not holding against people.
Sure.
I mean, I met someone 5 years ago. They may have been a total asshole. They might not be anymore. Maybe they've almost died and have gone through some significant changes in life, and maybe they're a good person now.
Or they could be an even bigger
Or
asshole.
they could be a bigger
It's very
asshole.
possible
They
too.
could have doubled down on asshole. But people can change and like learn new things. And like Marcus Aurelius talked about a river and how like a stick is flowing down the river, and you see that stick at one point in time, you don't realize where it came from and where it's going. But there's a lot of stuff that passes in front of you that will continue to change and morph. And I love that analogy. I think people floating down rivers is a weird way to think about it, literally to envision that in your mind. But like where they're at, a quote unquote mile marker 2 is very different than mile marker 500. You're going to get a different person at that point. So even the guys that might come off as like not getting it could eventually get it. They're just probably a little bit further behind in an earlier mile marker, potentially. I don't know, weird analogy.
sure.
Man. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on in my brain.
I think it's a good analogy, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what'd you say? It was your cousin?
Yeah, cousin of mine. He loves the outdoors. Like that's his thing. School's not his thing. He, works really, really hard to do everything outdoors. Loves bringing his buddies out, and he just, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He knows he doesn't want to do school, so he's like, why not try my passion while I'm young and while I've got nothing holding me down? And I said, yeah, man, go for it. See what it's all about. Doing that guide school will tell you pretty quick whether this is something you want to do or something that's definitely you don't want to do it. So I'm excited.
He'll get a good feel for it through that. The other thing I would tell him, man, is that like because it's so seasonal, if you really seriously want to do it and you're a young guy, pick up some other what I would call like high rate hourly gig. Like learn how to weld, something like that. Learn how to shoe horses so you can make a living outside of the seasons and
That-
because it takes a while.
He's got a good situation there because if his dad, my cousin also obviously, but dad's got his own concrete business doing flat work. So
Oh, there you go.
the boys have been helping dad for a long time. So they're big, strapping, strong kids. So he could always go back and do some flat work during summer and make some pretty good money from dad. So he's got a good system. I think he knows what he's doing.
That's a good call out, though. I think Cliff, I'm pretty sure if I were to like pull the thread back, we met through a mutual friend, Zach Hansen, who wrote Turning Feral.
That's right.
He hosts the OK's Trapper podcast on our network, and he's got another book coming out called The Trade Gap, and he talks a lot about now, like go skill up on a trade if you're in like the like knowledge worker industry. Blue collar, like right? Blue collar? Or is that what if you're white collar? God, I'm so stupid. If you're a white collar worker, go learn a blue collar skill because like AI could disrupt us, the tech bubble could, all these things could just collapse and you're just sitting there. What do you know how to do?
With
Nothing.
no skills or
like,
no usable skills.
And the trades are an incredible way to make a really great income and to really feel genuinely accomplished about like building something with your damn hands and be like, I did this today. I built that today rather than I typed and made digital dust. It's different,
Well, dude, it's, I mean, I'm not saying that you can become an expert at one relatively quickly, but you can become proficient and a valuable part of like society in a lot of these things in like a couple months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of you can at least hit like baseline competency in them.
Well, I think Adam Kaufman, who runs Free to Prowl Outdoors, he's a guide, I think now to some degree. I don't know in what
I think
fishing.
he guides fishing
and some Western stuff or some big game stuff. But he was living out of the back of his pickup truck, traveling up to Alaska, living like a life that he really wanted to live. But he was a Finnish carpenter.
So he was doing like
he did the
jobs.
He did the trim in this room
all along his journey.
I was like, he was on the podcast. I was like, bro, do you want to do some trim work? He's like, yeah. He knocked it out in like, I'm not joking. It might have been like 2 or 3 hours. I was pretty confused about it because he had a store trip in that too, where he went and got all the material and stained it and hung it and did. I was like, what the? I don't.
The efficiency to make one hardware store run is something that eludes me.
Right.
If I'm doing a project, I'm going at least 2, probably 3 times.
Like,
There's
he came
things that
here-
I forgot.
Like looked around and then I went up to work, and by the time like I wasn't even done my work and he was done with his, I was like, and it looks great. I was really impressed. We got to get a ceiling in here at one point or other, but like the trim looks good. It looks shitty without the trim. The trim was like a nice addition. You can't see it on camera, I don't think, anywhere based on where we're looking. I don't even know if you see it when I show Derek or me. No. Anyway, it's in here and it looks nice. But that was an example of like, I'm going to go guide, but I also have this other skill to do when I'm not guiding to make decent money.
Yeah.
Finnish carpentry is no joke. I'm not saying I can learn that. That's good luck. But yeah, I don't know. Good stuff, man. I like this has been a fun. I like we could just do a couple more episodes in the future and just go deeper on anything we talked about.
Yes, please.
Now that we have like one base layer done.
Yeah, no, I'm game, man. I enjoyed talking to you guys.
Yeah. What time is it in you're in Puerto Rico right now? What time is it there?
It's 8:10.
Oh, it's not terrible. Cool. And you got your whole family there with you and everything?
Yeah. Probably about 15 minutes ago in the video, I was talking to my son. He came in.
How many kids do you have and how old?
12, 10, and 7.
Oh shit. You're just like mile markers ahead of me with the family gig. I got 7, 5, and 3.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have
8 and 5.
8 and 5. 3 is hard. I don't know. Not to say 2 isn't, Derek. That's not what I'm saying. But
Oh,
like,
well, I've seen the lifestyle.
3
You
was a
guys are
dynamic that
definitely got more
changed.
going on than we do. That's for sure.
it's not. It's weird. It almost broke me. It's what I say.
I saw a saying the other day that was like 1 is 1, 2 is 3, and 3 is like 12.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, you get outnumbered.
Yeah, you're playing zone coverage, not man to man. Like it doesn't. It's tough.
Yeah, it's interesting too, dude. Like raising kids, it's like I don't know how you are, Eric, but or how either one of you guys are, but I always reflect on my own childhood. I don't know if it's like distorted or if it's actually the reality, but my kids, it's like my wife is just constantly taking them from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. Like when I was a kid, I remember just kind of like finishing school and then I was on my own a lot.
Existed. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it was like,
Yeah.
And now it's different. And I'm like, how's that? Like, do I need to restructure how this is working or what?
I don't know. I feel like if they don't end up in therapy, you did something wrong. If they do, you did something wrong. Like you're fucking like whatever.
Yeah.
And there's only
It's
so
a
much
weird- it's a
nurture that
weird
goes in
time.
against the nature. Like they do most of the work themselves. These kids, they we're here, we're guiding them, we're parents, but like at the end of the day, at some point, it's kind of like they did all the work. They really did. They filled in all the gaps. We just set the frame and they filled it all in. That's kind of how I see it. So if the frame needs to be changed a little bit, great, but who knows, man? And my kids have a lot of nature in them. I don't know the nurture part. I'm not even sure. I was telling my wife the other day, I'm like, my kid had a pretty disruptive moment yesterday, Dane, and I was like, wow, it's taking everything in me to not just beat the shit out of you for that terrible choice. I'm not that kind of parent, for the record. But like, what the fuck? And then also, like, how do I parent this? Because that was not okay. But like, I don't want to scar you. And if I like have some crazy consequence, am I gonna ruin his life? Because he like deliberately disobeyed me and did something incredibly dangerous in front of a large audience of people, and I couldn't. He was gonna win in that moment, but I was like, well, you're gonna fucking get it after this, pal. Like you think it's all fun and games, you just wait. And but like he's 5. Like, what am I gonna do? Like he doesn't understand half the shit. So, but also it's parenting's really hard, man. Like it's really hard. It's harder than any guided trip I probably could ever give in my life. Like
I just sent this quote to my buddy Mike and my wife earlier today before podcast. Says being a millennial dad is being stuck between being the tough old school dad that you grew up with and being a soft modern dad. It's like being a medium rare dad.
yeah, I feel that. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's like that all the time. Yeah, my daughter, she's I don't know, light years above where I was at her age. I'm like, I hope you work in my business someday or one of them. You're so smart. Like she'll be my key to everything at some point, or she won't be. Maybe she'll be my enemy.
Maybe we'll be working for
Depends on
her.
how I raise her. Oh boy. Yeah, and then the last kid's like a frat boy. I don't know how else to describe him. He's
Oh,
he's
gonna
like a
be-
frat boy.
He's gonna be a party boy.
He's weird. Yeah, they're all pretty weird. They have
Well,
our
it's great.
best and worst qualities, our children. That's the thing. Like they have our best and worst, your wife and yourself. They got all the best shit and all the worst shit. And you're like, damn it.
Yeah, no, it's a challenging thing, man. I'm just amazed how different mine are, like as individuals. I know that sounds kind of crazy.
From each other and from
Yeah, from each other. Like
Yeah.
for some reason, man, may sound idiotic, but I thought in my mind before I had kids, I just thought I'd have like 3 clones. You know what I mean? They'd be, and then when they start, particularly they get to that 6, 7, 8 years old, you're like, oh yeah, totally different little humans, man.
Yeah, wildly different. I mean, it's almost like a mountain lion where like
Dude, speak for yourself, dude.
Ours are just like mini versions of us. Like Penny, my daughter, her and I are exactly the same with how we react to anything, emotional state.
Mhm.
And Gus and my wife are the same.
Gus has a lot of your stuff going though. Don't you two butt heads?
Yeah, we do.
We probably got more of you
But my
than
wife
you're
and I
aware
butt
of.
heads too.
Yeah. don't we all? Oh boy. I did a post the other day about I did this stupid mustache because
I love it.
I don't know why I felt like
The
doing that.
retcation stash.
A guy at work got complimented on his mustache and I felt jealous.
So you went home and shaved your
I'm gonna
beard.
do a mustache too, bitch. And Colton, if you're listening, you do have a better mustache than me. I will admit it, but I have one too now. And it's just different. And
Different, not better.
Yeah, right. And I walk out of the bathroom and I'm smiling because I thought it was quite honestly pretty funny because I think I look pretty stupid with the mustache. So I'm like laughing at myself in the mirror as I walk out of the bathroom and she's like, "What did you do?" And she thought I was laughing because I was like making her mad, which then also did become funny in and of itself. So
But it
I was
also
laughing
made
for
her.
2
It
reasons.
also made her mad.
And then she just has been really mad at me. I was like, this is a lot like deer season. She's just like kind of mad
It's
at me.
reminding her
I was
of
like,
deer season.
not only is this a rut stash, my wife's also pissed at me. This is very familiar. It's like
feels
some
a
guys
lot
are like,
like
you gotta-
November.
some guys are in the comments like, you got to keep them at a low simmer of mad all year long so it doesn't boil over in hunting season. If you don't keep them pissed a little bit, you're in for real trouble in hunting season. You can't go from like candy bars and lollipops to like volcanoes and like death. Jeez. The internet it usually finds a way to win. Anywho. Well, Cliff, thanks for being our guest tonight. We appreciate you taking time out of your I don't even know how you have a schedule or what that could possibly look like, but it means a lot to us that you took time to be hanging out on our show tonight.
Yeah,
So
of course,
appreciate
man. I enjoyed it.
Really good
stuff.
talking to you, man. Thanks for the stories. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah. Wait. Well, I don't know. Are you booking things? Where do people find you? How should?
Oh yeah.
what
Dude,
should
I
we-
mean, the main spots that I guess I keep people up to date on are my Instagram, which is Cliff CLIFFGRY, and then my YouTube channel is just my full name, Cliff Gray. So includes the A. I don't, people ask me why I took the A out in my Instagram. It's because it was already taken. But yeah, Cliff Gray on YouTube. Those are probably the main ways folks can follow me on. And then my website's pursuitwithcliff.com. Most of my stuff's booked for 2025, but I've got a few trips on there with a couple spots.
And you have some learning things too, right? Like, don't you have like some groups or like some online things?
Yeah, and all that's on my website. Like I have a membership group, and it's got a free side and a paid side. And I do some, I do calls with those guys and some hunt planning stuff with those guys. And I've got a spring bear course on there. So there's tons of good information on there. And it's really like I almost call it like an extension of my YouTube channel, like all the how-to stuff, just with like a little more personal touch,
Okay, I dig it, man. Well, thanks for sharing, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. But if you're not already following Cliff, please do so. I think we didn't mention anywhere in the podcast, not for any bad reason. I just didn't like you were on the Joe Rogan show at some point. I'm not even sure how that even possibly happened. Not to downplay you, but like that's a big deal. I think that's like the modern day of getting on Oprah. Not to say you'd ever be on Oprah, but like it's the new thing that like, boy, if you're on that show, you've kind of made it. Like you obviously worked really hard to get to where you're at, and the content you have is pretty incredible. So if you're not already following Cliff, like please go follow Cliff.
Yeah, no, thanks, dude. Yeah, and that we can do that story next podcast, man, because it's a long one.
Hell
I
yeah.
bet. I don't ever want to be on Rogan's podcast. It would be like a 4-minute podcast. Be like, this guy, what the fuck he's talking about? Like, sorry, Joe. Like,
yeah, I get asked about, to this day, I get asked about it a lot. And I mean, the short of it is, man, is I've known him a real long time. Like, I knew him in a way that was like even my wife laughs about it. Like I communicated a lot with him about hunting stuff, but it was like in a pen pal way. Like, is this actually him? You know what I mean? Like it's like, dude, literally it crossed my mind several times. Like, am I getting scammed? Like, did somebody like hit me up and say like, hey, it's Joe. Like, hey, mind sending me some money via like Western Union?
So when you were going on there, you thought for sure, you're like, I might die. This might not be him. Me here because I can't invite you to my place specifically.
But no, seriously, dude, for years, I would go back and forth with him. I talked to him a couple times on the phone. So like I had a sense it was him, but I would always, like my wife would be like, my wife was like and I was kind of embarrassed by it because I didn't have like a, like any sort of like public like proof that he was my friend. And so like I just kept it to myself, but my wife would laugh about it. And every once in a while, like in some odd, like she wasn't weird about it, but in some odd conversation, she'd be like, dude, Cliff talks to him. You know what I mean? I would
like, let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I would just blush, and just be like, okay. Like I can't prove it. So let's just like not
crazy. Stop bringing that up.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah. So dude, one day he asked me out of the blue, like via text message, just like, hey, let's do a podcast.
And you're like on mine? Like you'll be on mine?
Yeah, dude. Not even fucking around. That was my reaction. Like, what is he talking about?
Like, there's no possible chance he means me come on his podcast. Like, what?
Yeah. That was my reaction to it, dude. And then my secondary reaction was like, people are going to have to believe that he's my friend now.
Yes. Your wife probably loved that moment. She's probably like, I don't feel like I need to fist bump you, Derek. Your wife is like, oh, cool. I can finally talk about this for real without him getting weird.
That's really cool.
That's great.
But so that's the short of it, man.
That's cool. That's super fun. And what a neat thing to be able to have been able to
do in your life to have that platform. To
I
talk
know what
about
I'm
you love.
listening to on my drive home.
There you go. Derek's gonna be like, "Fuck the OK's Hunter." I'm gonna go hear what Cliff actually had to say.
I laugh about it because I feel like it's one of my least interesting interviews ever, but it's all good.
This is your best one yet. Like
It's in the top 5%.
Here we go.
Top 5%.
You're welcome back anytime. If you're ever in Wisconsin, you're welcome in studio. And like hopefully we get a chance to meet in real life sometime and not be digital pen pals. That'd be fun.
No, for sure, guys. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good night.
Cliff.